Hey everybody, it is Mooney and welcome back to the Step Into Your Spiritual Spotlight podcast. I am bringing you some of my favorite content that's coming out right now because it's an opportunity for us to all take a look at where we have been, what we're doing now, and where we want to go. And it's the perfect time before we enter Mercury Retrograde. A lot of people have negative feelings about Mercury Retrograde. I have a great experience and feeling about them because sometimes, even though I don't want to, it's good to look back and look at everything that we've done and everything we've accomplished and celebrate some of our victories and celebrate some of our challenges because they led to some incredible breakthroughs, or maybe they're leading to breakthroughs and we need to kind of go back and energetically reconnect with them. It's a great time to go back and sift through all of your old journals and notebooks. It's a great time for you to go back and revisit the things that ground you and like the just the basics of what make you continue to be able to do this work and how to recharge your own spiritual batteries. So there's a lot of things that we can do as spiritual business owners or aspiring spiritual entrepreneurs to say, hey, what can I learn from this moment? Let me take this period of time and reassess, or maybe look at some things and see if I've changed, or if my goals have changed, or if my vision has changed. And there's no right or wrong answer. I think that's the best part. You get to be the one that's authoring this experience, and you get to also be in control of what that experience is like for you. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I wanted to kind of draw your attention to like four things that can come up for you, or four ways for us to kind of do this thing I'm talking about, which is really just what I'd like to call like re-energizing, or for those of you who are restarting a business or really want to take things start over a little bit, a reset button almost. And if you're brand new, this is a great way for you to kind of get some insight and get some feedback on things that maybe you should consider as you're starting out and save yourself a little bit of time. So, first, I really want you to think about, and if you've heard me talk about any of this stuff before, the question about your North Star. And I think sometimes when we're doing this, we've been doing it for a long time, or you've been doing it and it's been frustrating, you're doing it and it's not going the way you want it to, sometimes you can be in a position of maybe questioning whether or not your North Star, your big why, the thing that's driving you forward, if that's still the reason you're doing it, if that's still the reason you want to be doing it. And even, quite frankly, sometimes if your North Star is still aligned with how you're showing up for your business. For those of you who haven't heard it before, the North Star for me is like, even in the darkest moments, you can look up and you can say, okay, I'm doing it for this. I'm doing it because of this. I'm doing it because I don't want people to feel alone. I'm doing it because I want to help people connect with their animals. I'm doing this because I want to make the world a better place. That's a big one, but you get my meaning. So if your North Star hasn't been, shall we say, showing up for you, or your North Star isn't really shining like it used to, or maybe you've just lost sight of it entirely, now may be the time for you to say, hey, I think I might want to recalibrate this, or I want to like re-energize it and reattach myself to it. So there's a re-anchoring process that you can go through to write it out, to create affirmations around it, to meditate about it. Again, going back to basics to say, what do I need to know about my North Star? Is my North Star evolving? Is there something that's changing? Is its position moving around a little bit? Is it helping me learn something about myself or an area that I need to work on? So let me give you an example. Sometimes I feel like my North Star, which is I don't want anyone who wants to do this work to ever feel alone. But in the moments that I get under stress, or I get, overwhelmed, or I have a moment, a human moment, I'll withdraw. And I'm making myself alone. So it kind of came to me in one of these Mercury retrogrades, and it's very clear to me kind of now as we're entering this next one, that I've been the opposite of what my North Star is, that I have been acting and showing up and being the opposite of what I want to create for other people. And with that kind of dissonance, like, do you get yourself into trouble? Do you tie yourself up into knots? Do you spin yourself around and get totally lost and confused because you're doing one thing, but you're trying to create the opposite? Doesn't make sense. So think about it in those terms. Like, what is my North Star? Am I showing up that way? And how am I showing up for myself in the way that I want to show up for other people? I know that's a lot to unpack all at once, but what I'm trying to get you to see is that we're all a product of our own design. And so for you to have the dissonance, or like the disconnect between what you're saying, your messaging of what you want to put out there into the world, and how you're showing up, usually that ends up in a little bit of discombobulation. And we talked about discombobulating and recombobulating, all sorts of things that can happen during this time period. But it's worth it to take a look at this piece of it and say, is my North Star still my North Star? And for a lot of us, it is. Or a lot of us, there's just a tiny little 2 millimeter shift to the right or to the left to like really zero in on what it actually is. And if it's totally fresh and totally new and you're dropping what you've been doing and you're moving in a totally different direction, that's okay too. But just committing and connecting and anchoring yourself to that North Star so that you can always find it in those moments of frustration is going to be important. So that's number one. Number two is setting some new spiritual goals, and specifically spiritual business goals. So let's just say if you're starting out right now and you're brand new, that perhaps getting out there a little bit more, or learning how to talk about your gift, or working on your kind of mission statement, as I call it, your adjective, noun, verb, so you can explain to people what it is that you do, and people who are in this world can get it, and maybe some people who aren't in this world can also get it. But being able to say those words with like certainty and confidence means a lot when we're trying to figure out how we fit into this space and what this really means. So if you're just starting out, maybe that's a goal that you can put in front of yourself. Or maybe you want to go further and you want to say, I'd love to be a teacher. I'd love to do readings. I'd love to have, like 10 readings a month. I'd love to do this. I'd love to have that. So maybe you want to write a book. Maybe you want to speak in front of thousands of people, whatever it is, but it's good to have goals, and it's good to reassess those goals. So during a Mercury retrograde, it's a great time for you to say, all right, well, let me look at some of the goals I had before and let me see what I can learn from them. Let me review. I had these goals and they didn't happen. So how can I learn from myself or the experience of it to see what I might be able to do differently? Let's say I had these goals and I achieved them, and it was easier or harder or exactly what I thought they were going to be. What does that do for me, for my confidence, for looking for a new goal, or for approaching things in the same way? So there's a lot to learn inside of goals, whether they're fulfilled or unfulfilled, when you're just starting out. If you're starting over, if you're hitting the reset button on your business, then I want you to think about some of the goals that you put in front of yourself and trying to recalibrate them with your new understanding, with all this experience that you now have of trying and succeeding and trying and failing and trying and getting just like a middling result. What did you learn about yourself in the process? And what goals would you set in front of yourself? Not in a pressured way, not in a way that's creating expectation from yourself or from others, or this kind of like pressure that sometimes we can feel when you're seeing stuff all over social media and everybody's up to something and doing something, and I better get up, I gotta catch up. That feeling, I feel it all the time. That feeling is not real, first of all, and it's also not helpful. So what would you do for yourself if you could set a goal of being able to peacefully approach the projects that you're working on? Or how about setting a goal that you're gonna, put yourself out there and flex those muscles to build more confidence? Or what if you're just going to be more gentle with yourself? You can also have goals of, I want to get my email list going. I want to get my social media up and running. Those are all totally appropriate goals too. But sometimes the bigger goals of us being able to find that peace or that joy, or just, the alignment of knowing that you're showing up as your North Star and you're there for yourself in that way, is amazing. Another way to look at it would be is to kind of, if you've been doing this for a while, think about yourself a couple years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, whenever this dream started for you, and start to kind of get back a little bit of the energy of that and remember that person and think about that person and think about like the things that they wanted and think about the things that they didn't know that they wanted, and they had no idea what was coming next, and they didn't know how it was going to unfold. And now look at yourself and see, truly, really look at yourself and say, have I evolved? Have I learned things? Have I grown? Have I tried things? Have I tried things and failed? Have I tried things and succeeded? Have I tried things and nobody listened? What have you accomplished? And if it's any form of your own evolution or your own spiritual growth or your own development and personal development or your own well-being, I think that your past self would be really, really proud of the work that you've done. They'd be in awe of you. And I think it's very easy, I get caught up in this too, of thinking, okay, well, 7 years ago, I've been sitting on this for 7 years and I haven't done anything that I wanted to do, and I haven't achieved the things that I wanted to. It's so easy to go down that slippery, slide of shoulda this, shoulda that. They say shitting all over yourself, right? So it's so easy to do that, especially when you're feeling stressed out and overwhelmed, or you've lost your connection and the thread to why you're doing this. But then I have to remind myself, I get to work with some amazing people. I have experienced incredible things in the last 7 years. I've personally gone through incredible growth, whether it means like my own health and well-being, my own prosperity, my own abundance, my own relationships, my own self-image of how I feel about this guy that's sitting in front of you and telling you these things, my vulnerability to be able to sit in front of a camera and talk about these things and share these things. All of that has developed and grown by leaps and bounds in the last 7 years. And if I really had a moment to spend with myself from back then, I feel that he would be in such amazing awe of everything that I've done. And he'd be so proud of me for all the things that I've accomplished, and all the internal things that I've worked on, all the external things I've worked on, all the spiritual things that I've worked on, all the business related things that I've worked on, trying to figure out how I fit into all of this without turning myself into a pretzel, or putting myself under duress, or doing things that are uncomfortable, or crossing any line of integrity that I have. Like, I've done an amazing job of keeping myself very aligned with who I want to be, and I'm really proud of that. And I think a lot of us can say the same when it comes to this trajectory. So I want you to at least take a minute sometime this week, whenever you have a moment, and just kind of like when you're meditating or just kind of chilling out, think about yourself 7 years ago, and think about what they would say and how much they would be in awe of everything that you've accomplished and everything that you've sustained and everything that you've endeavored to do, and all the things that you've put yourself out there to do, and all the things that you're thinking about, and all the things that you're working on, and all the goals that you've met, and all the goals that you set for yourself and then learned something about. I could go on and on and on, but you get what I mean, is that there's so many things to be grateful for, and there's so many things for you to look around and say, yeah, I really am doing great. And that's a key part of this. And like, setting those goals, I think, is going to be important for you, but also looking back and saying, look at what I've already accomplished, is a huge part of it. So the third thing I want to share with you is I want to talk about realigning your strategy. So we've already taken a look at our North Star and like why we're doing this. We've looked at some of the goals that we've set, past and present, and some of the things that we've accomplished without maybe even really acknowledging that they're accomplishments. So we're really trying to like paint this picture for ourselves of like, you really are doing great. And it's not just a picture, it's the truth. You're doing great. You're still here. You're listening to this podcast. You're watching this video. You're still here. You're still doing it. But what strategies could you start using to re-energize, to reset, or reinvigorate your approach? So are you caught up on your website? Did you finish your adjective, noun, verb? Have you, thought about the ways that you want to show up in this industry? Are there things that you could start doing, like going to the local spiritual bookstore the next time they have an event and introducing yourself to the owner of the store? Could you go to a spiritual event locally, or a fair or something like that, and just meet people and introduce yourself? Could you start talking about the things that you're into more consistently? Could you show up on Facebook every day, or on social media every day, or on YouTube every day, or not even every day, once a month, once a week, whatever's convenient for you, and just from the heart share how you're feeling and what you've been up to? Are you going on the Facebook page and commenting and sharing on Self-Promo Saturday? So there's all these things that you could be doing that would start to like realign your strategies a little bit to get things focused. But something came up on one of the calls that we just did, and here's a kind of shout out for that. I'm changing the format of how I do these monthly Dinner to Mooney calls, and that's like a live coaching call. I kind of like tongue in cheek there, but Dinner to Mooney is our opportunity to just kind of get together and just in the bubble of what we're doing, just have like a good old vent session about the stuff that we are struggling with, and celebrate the things that we're winning with, and just kind of talk about what it's like to be in this industry so that we don't feel alone in it, right? That's why I do these. So I want to make those available to everybody. So if you come to themooniverse.com/live, you can sign up for the next one and check it out and see what it's like to interact with your peers out here in the industry, and hear a little bit about what everyone's going through, and it might bring you some peace and it might give you a new perspective. But one of those perspectives that we got was from Louise, who I feel like we've talked a couple of times, but maybe not recently on these calls. And she is an incredible artist, award-winning artist, international artist, and she's got a card deck and she's got a lot going on and a very full life. And one of the things that she brought up is her strategy is acknowledging what she has around her, acknowledging the beauty of what she has around her, and the contentment that she feels that everything's great, that what I have is great, and I have enough, and I'm full, and that fullness, that contentment in her heart, and from that place, then acting in direction of her spiritual business, of her card decks, of her art, of what she does in her personal life. So coming from that place of contentment, what that changes in terms of the pressure that you feel to succeed or to achieve a certain goal or to do anything. It changes the nature of how you show up for that. It changes the energy of all of it. It was such a refreshing moment on this call to hear that, because it's so easy to rattle off a list of 15 things that you could do to realign your business strategy, but sometimes it starts right here. So I thank Louise for sharing that, and I thank everybody for joining me on that call, and you're all welcome to join on the next one. They're usually the last Tuesday of the month, and again, that's themooniverse.com/live. So realigning your strategy, and it could be realigning you, it could be realigning how you approach things, and it could be realigning your entire business plan. Whatever it is, now's a great time for you to dig in, look at the past, see what worked, see what didn't work, start planning for the future, get really clear. Sometimes setting up a plan for an entire year of, in this month I want to do this, and this month I want to do that, is really great. Other times it's building a map of your week. These are the dates and hours of the week that I want to be focusing on my business. These are the dates I want to be practicing self-care. This is my time for spiritual self-growth. This is where I got to squeeze in my muggle job. This is where I got to take care of my family. This is where I got to, it's nice to schedule that sometimes. And it's a great way to kind of find a strategy if you're not sure which way to start. But any way you do it, if you even just take Louise's hint of saying, I'm just going to be content here, and I'm not going to do anything out of desperation or scarcity or wanting or fear, and I'm just going to do it out of contentment, it's a great energy to bring to what you're creating. And then the last thing we want to talk about is tools and techniques and technology. So I'll give you the triple T on this one. So tools, techniques, and technology. Say that 5 times fast. Tools, techniques, technology. This is going to be important for you as you are stepping into this new energy, reigniting, restarting, or just starting your business during Mercury Retrograde and kind of whenever. But figuring out what spiritual tools and techniques, what digital technology tools and techniques, what personal development tools and techniques, the things that work for you. And everybody's different. And, for me, I really like time blocking. I really like making lists. I really like planning and using project management software. I like cleaning up my space and creating a beautiful space to work out of. And sometimes when things get a little bit disorganized, it's hard for me to work. I know what makes me tick. I know how to set myself up for success that way. And we all have it differently. And there's certain ways that we can unlock that. So if having a really peaceful morning where you sip your tea and then you meditate and you listen to music and then you get to work is how you do it, great. If you need to stand on your head and eat saltine crackers and then start working, that's great too. If there's no right or wrong way of doing it. It's just really how to get yourself into that place of contentment and how to focus and align so that you can achieve things and get things done, or you can plan, or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. The technology part of it, I remind everybody that you have to have this concept or this mindset of I love technology and technology loves me. There are so many ways for us to interact with the technological world, the digital world, the internet, social media, phones, videos like YouTube. There's so many ways for us to interact with these things that sometimes it gets overwhelming because you feel like you have to be everything everywhere all at once. And, there's ways for you to do this where you're creating it in text and turning that into a podcast and turning that into a video, or creating a video and reverse engineering it. However it is that it makes sense to you, what I want you to remember is that the technology is here to support you. And Pat, who's on our calls, who's incredible, she's an amazing animal healer, she brought up today, that she's she's playing with AI a little bit. She's getting involved with AI, but not in a way that the work is losing its humanity. The way that she represented it, and I loved this, is that she said, I've been an art director for so long, and so now I feel like I'm just art directing this technology. So I'm using the technology to get the result, but I'm art directing it. I'm kind of massaging it, and I'm giving it that human touch to make sure that it's still me at the end of the day. And you can have boundaries around that. Pat was right. Like, I'm never going to use it for my book, but I love using it for articles, and I love using it for my website, and I love using it for all these things because I get to then edit it and direct it and shape it, and help myself out in the process and embrace technology. So I want you to kind of consider those things too, of maybe that's what would reinvigorate it, is stepping back into, like, I'm going to just be curious about this technology. I'm going to be curious about what makes me tick. And I'm going to set myself up for success by using the tools and techniques that I know resonate with me to get me there. So I just want to recap for all of us, is that we're going to take a time during this Mercury retrograde, and we can do it whenever, but this is a good time to do it, of just finding a fresh perspective to realign with our spiritual business. Part one, we're going to do that with recalibrating our North Star and figuring out if that why is still why we're doing it. The second thing we're going to do is set some new spiritual goals. And they could be big, big goals. They could be little goals, internal goals, external goals. But trying to say, here's what I tried to do before. Did I do it? Yes or no? And then here's what I want to do. How am I going to approach this differently to get a result, and be curious about myself in the process? Then we're going to realign our strategies. And that could take the shape of a lot of things. Some people really need to work on this contentment. Some of us watching this need to look at ourselves in a positive light and say, I have it pretty good. I've got it pretty good. And from that energy, where could you go? What could you do? How would the experience of creating things be different from a place of contentment? Another strategy would be how you get out in the world and talk about what you do and share what you love. Those are all things that we could look at. So again, internal, external, however it makes sense for you. And then the last piece of it is, of course, the tools, techniques, and technology. So this is an amazing opportunity for you to reshape your experience in Mercury retrograde. I actually look forward to them now. I try not to complain about it too much, but it is good for us to take this time and do that. And thanks again for joining me here. You can find out more at themooniverse.com. There's some great startup materials for you. That's at themooniverse.com/startup to help you if you're just getting started. We've got amazing opportunities coming up for coaching, for online learning, so many things that you'll be able to do and find the resources you need to feel less alone, feel more empowered, and get things done and get out there. So again, thanks for joining me on YouTube. Thanks for joining me on mindbodyspirit.fm, and I'll see you all very soon.